Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to Huddle Up here on the Missouri Sports Network. Hey, we're inside the Pizza Ranch studio. You're sitting live here with the fellas. At least two of us in the studio. One of us driving around trying to figure his way out, his way in the world here. Mr. Guy Newcomb. He's sitting there looking good and pretty. And the other one, I want to give a round of applause to Mr. DA Darren Archer, the new coach at the Walnut Grove Lady Tigers. Way to go, DA. Congratulations on the new job. I hope you guys don't go through any name changes over there. I like the Tigers. Let's keep Walnut Grove, the Lady Tigers, the rest of this show. DA, hopefully you take a long run. I know you're excited about the new position, DA, especially with I don't know if our listeners know the DA also was the head basketball coach at the Southwest Baptist. So DA comes with a lot of experience. They got a really great hire, really great guy. DA, talk to me, brother. How you feeling?
Oh, I feel good. Glad to be back in the game and checks in the mail for saying all those good things about me.
Thank you, brother.
Attaboy.
The last one, I had a little bit more, but the last one wasn't enough. So I stopped it short right there. I had a lot more great things to say, but the last check really wasn't paying the bills.
Right. I
Gentlemen,
understand.
glad to be back. We had a great weekend of college basketball, exciting games. Everyone was up and roaring. Maybe one game disappointed, but the other ones had big swings. Team goes up 13, end up losing. Team goes by 10, end up losing. We had wraparound passes. We had between the leg passes. We had alley-oop, slam dunks. DA, tell me what game you really liked and just your overall atmosphere of college basketball kind of making a comeback with this tournament, bringing a lot of people back into the fold. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the tournament suffered through COVID. Just didn't have that same feel to it with empty gyms and uh, now that things have kind of relaxed and seem to be back to normal, I think it's back in good shape. Plus the fact that everybody's brackets are so screwed up right now. That's what makes it makes it even better. So I think you're seeing a shift in men's college basketball with the transfer portal, with the NIL. Um, some of your lesser known programs that have 4 or 5 year guys are really doing well this tournament. And here again, I think that's a result of COVID. But probably 4 teams that not everybody had as a shoe in for your Final Four. And looking back, I love basketball. Period. So all of them are good to me. But um, it's a very fun time of year. Last weekend to watch the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight to build up to this coming weekend is always my favorite time of year, and really looking forward to what should be an entertaining Final Four.
I agree with you. What we have on the Final Four, we got Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State, and then we got Miami, I believe it is, versus UConn. Guy, let's run through a couple of the scores. Miami beat Texas 88-81. UConn pretty much handled Gonzaga. A lot of people didn't see that coming after Gonzaga came back and ended up beating UCLA. Creighton at San Diego State was a great game. And San Diego State, of course, pulled that off 57-56. And then you had Florida Atlantic beating one of our favorite teams, Kansas State, with the program Huddle Up friend of ours, Rodney Perry, being the assistant coach. Guy, what was your feeling on some of those games and your take?
Well, you look at that Florida Atlantic K-State game. Obviously, a lot of eyeballs there, just because number one, our connection, all of our connections, to Rodney Perry. You really rooting for them. And Florida Atlantic, they just had some dudes. I mean, they were big. They got the big rush in there in the middle. They're going to be a tough out. UConn really is the only maybe marquee program, in the Final Four, with UCLA being gone. I think this is the first time ever since they expanded the tournament that there's not been either a North Carolina, UCLA. It's been Coach Archer talked a little bit. A lot of these teams are older. They're playing some of these guys because of the COVID year. Some of these guys, I mean, there's the FAU roster may be older than half of the NBA rosters out there with the age that they've got, and that just that tends to lead to, I mean, not only you're physically more mature, but athletically more mature, but you're emotionally more mature. And this is a grind when you talk about these back-to-back weekends where you've got to play 2 games and be at your highest level. And you look at K-State, what they went through with that overtime win, to get to the Elite Eight, that took a lot emotionally out of them. And then to come back 48 hours later, and physically out of them, and to come back 48 hours later, I think that's what hurt them. But some of these teams that have got those more mature athletes on it, that's why you're seeing the success that they're having.
Well, I would push back and kind of debate that a little bit. I thought that was the playing field was about as level as you're going to get that game. I just think they missed a wide open layup for a dunk. You missed some easy bunnies around the rim, and I thought K-State just kind of just lost its way a little bit. They missed a couple free throws down in the front end of a 1-and-1. So it was just kind of one of those things where you look back at those games, it's one thing, DA, leads to another. The San Diego State game, DA, there was a very, what I would call non-controversial call as far as what I look at it, because I really thought that he kind of did have his hand in his side and fully and completely affected his trajectory in the air. DA, talk about that a little bit for our audience. Was that a foul or not a foul at the end of that San Diego State Creighton game?
It was a foul. I mean, that's your first class in refereeing school is going to show you a foul like that. That's a foul. But where I think a lot of people had a problem with it is that game was a very physical game from the get-go. And there were a lot of other fouls just like that were let go and were not called. And I think the reason people were upset was just the consistency throughout the game. And as a coach, you don't really recognize this rule as much as I think is what fans do. But I think there's an understood rule when fans are watching basketball that regardless if a guy gets his head taken off, it's not a foul at the end of the game. You just don't blow your whistle. But you can't do that. From my standpoint, I don't feel like it was controversial. It was a tough way to lose a basketball game, no doubt about that. I'm sure the kid that had the foul called on him was, beside himself. But no, it was a foul.
Yeah, see, I'm more like that. Play through it, and I respect what you're saying immensely. I'm more like play through it because I'm not gonna call it. And I know I'm not necessarily eat your whistle, but you're gonna have to really knock somebody down for me as a referee. Haven't seen that, but Guy, that's just a tough way to lose. Miami, on the other hand, Texas got up. I thought Texas let off the gas a little bit. Texas got up. And just I saw a little bit of smiles on the sideline at a timeout, and I said, "Ooh, that's not a good sign." Guy, they ended up losing that game after being up by 10 late, with 13 minutes left in the game. What are your thoughts about that game, Guy?
Well, I tell you that Miami is just so athletic, and this is Jim Larinaga, coach team that he kind of started that sweep or that Cinderella run when he was at George Mason and took George Mason, to the Final Four years ago. He kind of was, right in front of that as far as these Cinderella teams. So he coached them up. And, I'm watching him, and I'm thinking that guy looks just like Jimmy Boeheim. I mean, on the sideline, just much another nicer version, I think, of Jimmy Boeheim. But I thought that was a well-coached game. I thought timeouts were called at the right time. I thought, they took Texas out of some things that they were comfortable doing and being able to get to the rim. And Miami's just athletic, and it's who wouldn't want to go play at Miami? That's another thing there. This is going to put them maybe in a and they finished second or third in the ACC. They're not a bad team,
right?
To get. But I was impressed with Miami, and I loved the weekend and that foul. Like Darren said, that's a tough time to call that. In that game, that's you look at every other game. That weekend, there was an average of 34 fouls called in every other game that weekend. That was the 19th foul called in that game with 1 second left on the clock. Yeah. And I think, and the official where he was standing, that's the only place you could have seen that. He just had to be standing in the right spot, be there at the right time. I think that's a foul, but I don't know that you call that in a tie game.
Right.
I think you maybe push that. Let's go to overtime and decide this. We've allowed this kind of stuff to go on all game. Now, if one or either of the teams have a 1-point lead, yeah, then you blow the whistle and then let that foul determine the game. But that was just a rough time to call that with it being a tie game.
I completely agree with you. So that's 2 against 1. That's the non-coaches versus the coach on that one. And as Karma would say, hopefully that doesn't happen to you sometime next year, DA, because you'll be calling us like, why did he call that at the end against your Walnut Grove Lady Tigers? Hey, everyone, you're listening. You're listening to Huddle Up here on the Missouri Sports Network. 2 of us are in the Pizza Ranch studio. One of us is in an old beat-up Chevy Ford, found on the road dead somewhere along the line. That's Guy Newcomb. We'll be right back with our next segment. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Thanks for listening.